Hello, I'm Dazzling One, and today I'm going to give a mini testimony. I've been asked in the past if I could give a testimony, and I think today's the perfect time, being that it's been 1 year since this channel was started, as well as the fact that I want to share and talk about how God's been so good to me in doing this. Like everything, even when it comes to research, I want to start with my history to work my way up to who I am today, to build a perspective. So, in my very early years, I was born in Omaha, Nebraska. I grew up in moving around for the first 3 years of my life. I lived in Dallas, Los Angeles, Des Moines, because my dad's job, it traveled around. But once I got to about the age of 3, I settled in Omaha, where I was born. And I lived by my grandmother, so I spent a lot of time with her. My parents weren't saved in my very early childhood, and I don't remember much about God, but my grandmother, she always prayed for my mom, me, and my father that we'd come to know Christ. And it was cool because she would take me to church, and because my mom was like, she wanted me to know about God even if she didn't have anything to do with him. And finally, my mom actually gave her life to Christ when I was about 3 years of age. And my father, I'm still praying for him to this day. I remember when I would go to church, and I loved the messages. My early church experiences were great, and I gave my heart to Yeshua when I was 4 years of age. And I remember asking my mother one morning, how do you give your heart to Jesus? And she told me, and we prayed together, and next thing you know, she's like, the angels in heaven are having a celebration. And I was just so happy. After doing that, I would love to share God with everyone I came in contact with, including my younger siblings, who are both twins, who will actually be 17 in several days. In my elementary years, I began to have some strange dreams, and more like nightmares, I should say. They would be with demons and stuff. Like, I'd see people, like, demons would be everywhere, or in one of them, I remember I actually stabbed the devil in the eye. It was pretty epic, actually. But also, my elementary years, I was troubled because my first grade teacher, she hated me. Like, every time I'd do something, she'd tell me I didn't do it right, and she'd make me stay in during recess. She treated the other kids differently than she treated me. Maybe it was because in my early years, I lived in the inner city, and they turned the school into a magnet school, so I started getting, basically, the bus would go from one side of town to the other, to the suburbs, and so maybe she didn't like that fact. I don't really know, but it was miserable because it caused the other kids around me to treat me differently as well. Like, they would make fun of me. I got called all kinds of names: dumb, stupid, ugly, all kinds of things. Just, mean things kids say, and I didn't like it at all. And I didn't have any real close friends. And but regardless of that, I still cleaved to my faith. I still prayed. I still loved church and everything else. That was like my favorite place to go, was church. And I loved the Bible. And I remember I used to think that one day I'd actually see a spirit or something, because these dreams are so vivid. I mean, they weren't all the time. They were sporadic. But I remember my mom would even write down, and because some of them were so, like, just crazy, and they weren't all demonic. Like, I had a dream where I was actually floating above everyone in my class, and I saw, like where God would be, I saw this light, and I just knew that he had set me aside, and it was a positive dream. And I had really positive dreams. I didn't always have nightmares. Like, I know some people ask me, do you ever have any good dreams, or all you have are nightmares? But no, I've had positive dreams as well. So as a result of being ridiculed and everything else, I was a very quiet kid in school because, like I said, I endured a great deal of teasing, ridicule, and at recess, a lot of times, I would actually play alone with myself. It's funny, I never had an imaginary friend, even though I did talk to myself a lot. So in middle school, well, actually, I moved to KC from Omaha when I was in the 4th grade. And when I came here, it was a lot different, because now I was living in the suburbs, and it was totally different. And I made a small group of friends by the time I got to middle school, and life seemed like it was the normalest I'd probably ever be at, because since then I don't think my life has ever been completely normal. But one morning around 7 or 8 a.m., when I was 12 years of age, I was lying on the couch because I was having trouble sleeping in my bed since I was restless. I fell asleep and had a couple of nightmares. The first was of these strange men roaming around my house, and in it I was hiding from them scared, but I ran when the coast was clear to warn my mother. I woke fine. The next was of me in a boat going through a dark cave really quickly and bats flying. I knew I was on a journey alone. Then I awoke fearful, and I said to myself as I tried to sleep once more, I don't want to have any more scary dreams. I kid you not, I heard a voice answer me in that very moment, and stated, this one's going to be even scarier. Suddenly, I heard this horrid screaming. I wasn't sure who or what it was, and I tried to scream, realizing I couldn't move, and nothing came out. I felt as if there was a figure about 7 to 8 feet tall standing behind me, doing this to me. I began praying, unsure of what it was. After it ended, I rushed to find my mom and tell her. So that was my first sleep paralysis attack. Um, Before that, I never had like a demonic attack or seen a demon in the waking, and I didn't see a demon then either. I just felt it there, and so it's interesting because now that I'm looking back, I realized that like a few months before that, the very beginning of the year, I had visited my relatives in Mexico for the third time, and I had gone to the Teotihuacan pyramids, which are known as stargates as well, and I'd gone to the Pyramid of the Sun and Moon, and I wonder if there's any connection to that besides generational stuff as well. So after that first attack, nothing else occurred for a while, so I figured it was just a one-time deal. I didn't try to figure out what it was or anything like that, but like a few months later, I began having more attacks, attack after attack, and I realized I wanted to know what this was, so I looked it up, and I found out that it was called sleep paralysis. The explanation didn't satisfy me, although it stated that that's when you were stuck in between waking and REM, or dreaming, and to me that explanation didn't satisfy me because it didn't explain why some people had it happen to them and others didn't, because everyone else in my family was normal. No one else in my family was dealing with sleep paralysis or dealing with any of the stuff I was dealing with, which caused a rift for a while. And they affected me in school as well. I felt different from my peers. I didn't realize how common this was at all. It's funny because I even gave a speech about it in my junior year, this summer, because I took a summer class for speech, and I even talked about sleep paralysis, and people were like, oh, that's so cool, I wish I could go through that. And I was thinking to myself, no, you don't want to go through this. Which, it's funny, because like I said, growing up, I was considered very shy, and I even had won the Miss Shy Gal title when I was in the end of 8th grade, right before I went to high school. And I didn't like the title because people would say things like, why don't you ever talk, or I thought you were mute, or you need to talk more, or this is the first time I heard you talk. Things people, they tell introverts to try to bring them out of their shell. And, it really irritated me. But going back to my high school years, I began to drift away from my friends. I remember my freshman year was rough because they had changed just before high school, and they had a new crowd and a new clique. And as I was in high school, the attacks were more frequent, and I had shadowy figures I saw, doppelgangers, and other evil things, and I even had my deal of incubus attacks, and it was just terrifying. I was anxious and scared. I had withdrawn myself from everyone. At first, I was upset with God because I'd pray in His name and the attacks would stop, but not permanently, and I always would hear people when they would talk about the demonic, which was usually never at the church I went to, which was pretty dead. And it was funny because I actually got attacked at that church. I was we had a lock-in, so I was sleeping there because I was on the dance team. And as I was sleeping there, I actually got attacked by a demon while lying on the floor of a church. And that was funny because I thought for sure, if I'm in a church, the demons aren't going to enter in. It's impenetrable. Like the vampires, they can't cross into the church. And I had it happen, and I even saw a witch laughing, and I realized that church wasn't gonna protect me, just like I had tried to sleep with Bibles, I still got attacked. I tried to sleep with a prayer shawl, it tried to choke me with that. And really, I had on Christian and praise music, I still got attacked. Um, and everyone's explanation for the demonic, whenever, it was brought up to Christians, would be that there were some doors open in my life for sin. And although that's the case a lot of times, for me, I believe it was generational. But it caused me to feel a great deal of condemnation, sadness, and also resentment towards others, because I felt like, people were condemning me, as well as unforgiveness, because at that same period, I was going through some hardships with certain people in my life. As far as I know, I had been sheltered. I wasn't allowed to see like horror movies with ghosts or demons or witches and stuff like that, or read books like that, or even I couldn't even listen to secular music when I was younger. I had never taken any drugs or been sexually active or done any kind of witchcraft. So I knew it couldn't be that. And I just began to question, God, why would you allow this to happen to me? I've served you all my life. I've been loyal to you. Why is this occurring? I don't deserve this. Why me? Why not someone else in my family? Why not the person I don't like at school? I continued my research after questioning my faith. And even, I remember there was a period of time where I just really contemplated turning my life from God, because I said, if you can't help me, then I'm turning. But I realized no matter what I did, it wasn't my own willpower, it wasn't another name. He was the only one who could save me from these attacks. And I realized it was kind of selfish at the time, but I realized there was no other power and above his, and I stuck with him. In my later high school years, the attacks for the most part kind of subsided. They were no longer a daily, weekly, or even monthly occurrence. It seemed my spiritual battle was more with the people I was around, that I went to school with, and various other problems that try to arise. I even, at that point when I was a junior, almost went through a period of trying to have an anorexic lifestyle, in the sense I stopped eating. I wanted to over exercise. I wanted to lose so much weight. I was pretty weight obsessed, and it got me nowhere but getting lightheaded, nearly passing out. And yeah, it wasn't positive. And I went through a point where I had a teacher who was my English teacher, and I was always a writer. Like I told you guys, I write out everything that I talk about. Even now, even though I'm talking freely, I had to make an outline just to make sure I don't miss any important points. But I can remember I had this English teacher, and she gave me D's and F's. No matter how good everyone said my work was, she continued to give me low grades on all my papers. And at the same time, I was in the CSI program, like I talked about in my other video. And that teacher basically kept making me rewrite my essay over and over and over again. And as someone who has a love for writing, it was very, like, it hurt, like it hurt me really bad. And I can remember that I had won districts for the writing competition, but I didn't go any further. And it just hit me like a freight train. I just was devastated and everything. So I just stopped wanting to write at all. And then I remember it was my senior year, November of 2011, because it's funny, because not long after I began to discover the truth. I was sitting in front of my computer. I told myself I was never going to write again unless it was for another like essay for class, and suddenly this ideal just came to my head, and I was able to write this story, like this big book. And like I said, even though I'm editing it still, I'm just thankful, because God not only renewed my passion to write, but he also gave me a gift when he renewed that. But as far as me coming to know the truth, because that's a part of my high school years as well. My junior year of high school, I had a friend who had sent me something, and it was a rap song by K. Reno. He's an underground rapper. But it basically, in the rap, it talked about how our days of the week were named after pagan deities, the corruption that goes on, how basically we live in a culture that's satanic. And it was profound to me, because I realized, yes, that is true. And I try to look more into it, but it seemed like when I tried to look in 2011, early 2011, maybe late 2010, the Illuminati stuff, there was nothing to be found on the internet, barely. So later on, back in November of 2011, I remember people were coming up to me, do you think it's possible to sell your soul to the devil? Or I heard you could sell your soul to the devil. Like, people were just coming up to me randomly. It was weird. I feel like God works in what people think of as strange ways, because it's like he'll send people to you to like get you to go somewhere. And it's funny because, like I said, in the past, I've also had Satan's agents come up to me too and try to get me to go into witchcraft. But I remember I finally went to go look it up. I just typed in Illuminati in the search bar on YouTube, figured maybe there would be a video on it and it would explain what this group was, and immediately a video popped up about the music industry. I'm like, oh wow, let's watch it. And I did. I was just blown away because I was like, I know this is true. I always knew there was something different about the world, that, you know, what we saw wasn't really what there was, but I never tried to look into it deep. When 9/11 happened, I was only 6, almost 7 years old, and I can remember coming in from recess and the teachers were like, something terrible happened. And I can remember I saw people just crying and sadness, and I don't know, it didn't sink in the way maybe it would have if I were older, but you know, I remember things being shut off that never were, and changes being done because of it, and I was just like, why? You know, why do we have to have less rights or less freedom because some event happened like this? But they told us it was for the good, it was for our safety and security. So whenever I started to find out that these same people were behind all of this stuff, it wasn't a surprise. It was actually kind of refreshing because I always felt there was something wrong with this world, and I no longer felt pulled to one side. I no longer had to worry about Republicans and Democrats, or I had to worry about what was politically correct anymore. I realized that it was all a bunch of nonsensical nonsense, and I was just so happy that it was just liberating. And it also helped me realize that the reality of everything I experienced. And so I graduated in May of 2012, unsure of what direction I wanted to take with my life. I'd applied to a couple of schools that had a very low acceptance rate, and after my application, some of them actually got lost. Like, the schools didn't receive them. I had like some I registered online with, and I got locked out of my accounts. And the two they made it to, the two universities, which had basically, I think, like a 20% acceptance rate, I didn't get into them, and I just didn't know at that point anymore what I wanted to major in. So whenever August of 2012 rolled around, I was sad because I saw everyone I knew going off to college, all going to get their degrees, and here I was at home, and I'm like, should I apply to community college? But then I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I decided I would just take a year off, and I would just try to figure out what I really wanted to do with my life, taking career inventory tests and trying to research. And then, you know, I just began reading my Bible more and more again. I began looking stuff up, you know, continuing my seeking out the truth. And I can remember the words of Nephilim and fallen angels came to my head, and I forgot fallen angels existed because every church I'd went to, they never talked about fallen angels. It was just demons. You know, the devil was a demon. The fallen angels were demons. It was just good angels, and the ideal of fallen angels still being angels was just out of the question. And the Nephilim, I'd only heard it once when I'd read some fictitious book when I was in 5th grade about Nephilim. So whenever I was told to look it up again, I was just stunned because I realized how not only was this going to happen again, but it was being promoted to us through paranormal romance, through these otherworldly shows and movies, and I realized just the full connection. And so I remember I watched The Age of Deceit, loved the series. I recommend it to anyone who's seeking out the truth on the topic of fallen angels, Nephilim, alchemy, any of it, and even their new one they put out. I remember I also came and saw a prophecy in the news, and I ordered the Apocrypha, and I began reading it for myself. Read the Book of Enoch, Book of Jasher, the Book of Jubilees, the Book of Wisdom, and some other books in there, and I just saw how much of this had been taken out of the Bible and hidden. And I began trying to see how it connected into the Bible, because I know a lot of people argue that those books don't matter, they're irrelevant, but I found a lot of good connections. And like I said, there's not always, and not everything's going to line up, and I question it or throw it out if it doesn't, but it was just so refreshing to see, because I had been through 4 churches in my lifetime. Well, kind of 5. And like I said, the first one I went to in Omaha, great church. The second one I went to, the people there were cool until we got a new vehicle and they suddenly just got all hostile with us. The second church I went to, um, yeah, the people were cool until the elections, and then next thing you know, I was experiencing some undertone racism. The fourth church I went to, the pastor was, I feel like he was trying to be too much, like, fit into this mold with the world, and he was too worried about his image, and he was talking about church being a business. And when I found out it was trying to go corporate, I was just disgusted, because when has God needed to be marketed? How do you market Jesus? It was disgusting to me. And that was the last I had a church too. But up until now, just people say you can't get close to God if you have no church. And I disagree with that wholly, because I got closer to God just being with myself and studying His Word and seeking Him and praying and fasting. That's how I got closer to God. And even hearing from the Holy Spirit, because sometimes if you're in a church where there's corruption, all they want to talk about is prosperity, how to be relevant, how church is a business. They want to put racial undertones or whatever undertones in there. I mean, it's sad. But when I was 18 years old, in the midst of my research, I began having more attacks again, but this time they were from higher entities like fallen angels. It was so much different than the demonic attacks I had encountered, and so it helped that I had actually researched this, because I knew how to deal with it, and it went away pretty quickly. And little did I know that these short experiences that I had would actually aid in me doing the video I did in the future. And I remember God telling me constantly, even when I was like 13, that one day these experiences you have, you're going to use them to help other people, but I wasn't sure what He meant by that. The year flew by really quick, because, I mean, between working on the book I was given when I was 17 and just researching, studying the Word, my time flew by, and next thing you know, it was August of 2013, and I decided I was going to go back to school and major in biology and medicine. So my first semester, it was rough. I made it through with a few A's, but because of one of my classes, I received a very low grade because the workload was ridiculous. The guy wanted 8 to 10 chapters a test. I don't think the professor was really too fond of me either. As well as the fact that because I was focused so much on that class, I let another class go a little bit, so it wasn't as high. So my GPA was low. I was just devastated after that semester. I was unsure, like, is college really for me? And then my grandmother, at the same time, she was actually really sick, about to die, and so I was going back between Omaha and KC, and she passed away in last January. So I had spent 2 months off again of school, writing, researching, because that's what I felt God urging me to do. And then one February morning, I literally heard Him say, I want you to do a video exposing paranormal romance and the trend. And I was laughed to myself, because at first I felt like Jonah. Because I made a channel back in December of last year. Like I said, today's the birthday of the channel. And I only did it because I wanted to connect to some people, message them, maybe comment once or twice. I was even comment shy, because I'm like, I can never write a cool comment. I'm always like a really plain commenter, and I don't want to get into arguments with trolls either. And I remember my siblings had YouTubes way before I did, like when it first came out, and I didn't have one, so I was like, oh, well, who needs it? Who needs to? I don't need a channel. I can just go look up videos. So when I finally got one, it was a big deal for me. But then to go as far to like make videos, it was like, yeah, I'm not the type to make a video. I don't like to talk. I don't have time to do it. And so I remember I was trying to get anybody I could think of who had a really big channel, who had a lot of people who would listen, who was trustworthy to do it. Like, I would message them, and either I wouldn't get an answer, or I just realized that they weren't going to do it. And it's when I got the memo, you know what, if you don't do it, no one else will. And so I obeyed Him very nervously, very hesitantly, because I was thinking to myself, whenever you go online and you share the experiences you've had, especially demonic or any supernatural experiences, that all the critics come out there and they tell you that you made it up, that you are schizophrenic, that you must have had drugs in your system, that you're just looking for attention, whatever the case they say. And so I was just nervous about it, especially being my first video. Did I want to have a million hate messages left for me? And so I did finally put it together. I was really nervous, but I uploaded it up on my channel, but I didn't have, I didn't know anyone, so I actually told a couple friends, like, hey, check this video out and stuff, but I knew it needed to see a bigger audience because God gave me this message. It needs to see more people, so I began messaging channel saying, can you please share this? Can you please check this out? Just because I wanted to get the word out there. And so finally, after messaging so many people the scariest movie ever, he was like, oh my god, I love this. Can I put it into 3 parts and put it on my channel? I'm like, yeah, sure, you can do that. So it was funny because the day it went up was actually my parents' anniversary, and I actually got the okay from God to go back to college. And suddenly I woke up and there was like so many people commenting and telling me, like, like, oh, I've had similar experiences, and I realized this was God and not me. And I was just so thankful. And it's funny because I'd actually put up another video a week later because it had been out for a week. And it was on the Book of Enoch. And so it was cool because, like, people were able to see that, and I've always wanted to share the knowledge that I gained from the Book of Enoch as well. So that happened, and I realized that Wednesday was the day, which is funny because I was born on a Wednesday. So just an interesting fact in case any of you guys wanted to know this. So the name for my channel, Dazzling One, it's funny how it was picked because my little brother used to call himself Spectacular, and my mom just started calling us adjectives for fun. And so my sister was brilliant, and so I was like, she wanted to come up with one for me. So since my first name starts with a D, she was like, dazzling, you're dazzling. So I just ran with it, and I was like, I'm the dazzling one. And so whenever I was making my channel, I had no idea that I'd be making videos. So I'm like, no one's going to care about what I say or do anyway, so I just called myself Dazzling One. And so eventually, whenever I had the channel, I guess it was official, I was Dazzling One. And then as far as the Mars picture, I always loved outer space. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, and I also, it's one of my themes and one of my stories, so I just like the planet Mars, and I couldn't think of anything else creative in that moment besides penguins. So that's kind of how the picture came out of it, just in case you guys wanted to know that. After all of that happened, I actually went back to school. But this time I didn't have a full semester because the first semester I actually took 12 credit hours. This semester, well, not this semester, but that semester I took 6 credit hours, only took 2 classes. And I managed them. I did fairly well. And the channel thrived, and I was thankful for that because, God kept dropping ideals after ideals, and then some of you guys would come and give me ideals, and just, it was amazing. I'd look for information, I'd find it, just scriptures would fall into my see, I'm not someone who memorizes all the scriptures. Like, I quote scriptures. I can tell you, like, oh, there's a scripture in the Bible that says this, but remembering it verbatim, I've never been that person. I still have to look it up and stuff, but I know somewhere in the Bible it says something about this. It's funny because sometimes God will just tell me where it is in the Bible. It's cool, though. So after all of that, summer came, and I took one chemistry class. It was pretty rough, and I remember I freaked out on my final. And that's the other thing. When I was in college, I suffered from major test anxiety. I mean, I would study. I'd study and study and study and study. I'd know the material. I'd go in. I'd get a stomach ache. I'd feel my head like I was going to pass out. And next thing you know it, I'd come back with a really low test score. And I remember on my final, I freaked out. And I saw a spider crawling toward me on the ground at the same time. It was just awful. But I passed the class still. And so then fall comes around in 2014 now, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm gonna have to really get serious because I'm gonna have to catch back up. I'm gonna have 14 credit hours, the most I've ever taken, and now I have a channel because before I didn't have that responsibility. And someone even told me there's no way you're gonna manage that as well as, trying to edit these stories. So here I am, more on my plate than ever. And I'm like, God, please, I know if you want me to do this channel, then I'll continue to do it. But I know it's going to be a lot of work because I need to raise my grades. And so I remember you guys sending prayers to me, and you guys were saying, I'm praying for you, and I had a lot of support, and I thank you guys. And I remember I thought for sure there'd be a week or even 2 or 3 weeks where I wasn't going to be able to do anything. And I'm telling you, it was God, because I just started to do so well in my classes. I just started to ace tests. I just studied, and it was there in my brain. This test anxiety subsided. I was so thankful. Like, I know this had to be God, because before I sucked at taking tests. And so I didn't miss a week of making videos. I went back to editing. There was a point where I actually kind of was going to almost not do anything, and then I noticed my grades dropped, and as soon as I went back to doing something, it's like, bam, it just went back up. So what I wanted to say, as I close all of this, is that although for me, my life wasn't necessarily like a exciting ride, like I did this, that, it's more of a walk of faith, never giving up, despite anything that happens. And also, just when God tells you to do something, just like when he promised Abraham and he made that covenant, if he tells you to do something, he'll have your back no matter what it looks like. And I'm just thankful, once again, you guys, for all of your love and support, and being so patient with me, especially in the beginning, because I talked really fast. And also, I made a lot of errors when I was speaking, as well as, I remember the first video, I think I had music in it, and it really kind of took away, since some people say I'm soft-spoken. So I thank you guys for that too. And also, I was nervous because I'm like, no one's going to want to hear my voice speak, but I'm just thankful, like I said, and I thank God, because he's been so good. And just, I want to encourage anyone. I don't know what God's calling is for each and every person, but I know that we all have a purpose, and no matter how impossible it seems, he'll help you get there. He'll help you reach it, and he's always there. And I think of a few scriptures, just, I love scripture. In Proverbs 16:9, it says, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. And that's true. He didn't allow me to take the traditional step of going to college, getting my degree. It's funny, because going through college and doing a channel, exposing the lies, you see the indoctrination. Like, I've seen so many times how they try to indoctrinate us, and I just see the truth. And another scripture I like is Romans 8:28, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Once again, he helped me and helped me prevail in school. Another one, Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. And he did that for me as well. I mean, there's just so many good scriptures that pertain to this, but that's pretty much my mini testimony. Like I said, guys, thanks again for making it a great, I know it hasn't been a full year, but I guess it's the channel's year. Thanks for making it a great 2014. And I learned so much in doing videos. I learned a lot from you guys. And I realized that I'm not the only one who has experiences as well. And just encourage you guys to just keep pushing forward. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I'd like to thank you for watching, and God bless.